I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to the Conversation with Al McFarlane. I'm glad to be here and glad to have you along as well. As always, we promise robust conversations. That's what we do. It's what we enjoy. We hope you enjoy it as well. Thanks to our friend Remnant Girl Lit with their nice note of greetings, and our friend Michelle from out east. Thank you, Michelle. Tell everybody that we're live now and we want people to join us. We do this program 5 days a week. Today, Wednesday, we talk about wealth creation, about business development, economic development in all of its forms for both the individual and the community. And we talk about the idea of sustainability for our people and for community and country, and actually for the globe, the planet, for human beings, about being responsible to each other and for each other, and how we do our daily living, how we create institutions that serve that. We want you to support this work, and you do that by becoming a subscriber. We're streaming the program on 2 YouTube platforms, Black Press USA and also at the Inside News YouTube channel. And for us to keep count, we want people to go to YouTube/Inside News MN and become a subscriber, like, and share. We'll reach out to you also on Twitter, on Facebook, and on LinkedIn. And if one of those platforms is a place where you're connecting, we value that. We thank you. Let everybody in your network know that we're here and that we want them to join us as well. Always looking for ideas, conversations, stories. Our idea is that it's awesome to connect with ordinary people about the magnificent ordinariness of daily life. And that means that each of us has a story to tell. Each of us has a narrative to present, and that we want to demonstrate the value in respecting and elevating that narrative from every source. And so it means that my voice is important only if your voice is important. I ask that we blend our voices, build community by connecting, by having important conversations. So if you want to get in today's conversation, we're talking about a novel idea. It's novel, but it's old. It's about farming, about urban farming. It's a novel idea of how to turn food deserts and this disregard and sort of a neglect of sustainability in certain urban communities, environments. How do we reverse that and set up models for flourishing, for nurturing and building community around nutrition, around food, around accessibility? That's what today's program is about. Again, I want to remind people that next week, we're calling next week George Floyd Week. George Floyd Week. And I have to keep this in my mind, and I ask you to keep it in your mind as well, and keep it in your prayers. It's easy to forget. It's easy to become jaded and numb to all of the horrific stuff that happens every day around our community and our lives and around the world. But we owe it to ourselves, and we owe it to the future to be mindful, to be attentive, and to think about these milestone events that reflect a sea change. Right now, I believe we're at an inflection point. And part of that is, the dual catastrophic occurrences of COVID-19 and the murder of George Floyd. And the murder of George Floyd is that much more important to me here in Minnesota, because this town, this neighborhood is ground zero for the unfolding of what I believe is a global and historic inflection point in how we humans see each other and how we organize institutions to both represent and to serve us, and how we challenge institutions that, whether by intent or by default, have ended up being oppressors, not enablers. That's what the story is about. How do we create a new narrative? How do we create a new understanding, new language that allows us to live freely, be free, to live with dignity and decency, and to expect that the systems we put in place to moderate and enable us to be together are systems that don't within themselves disadvantage certain ones of us for the advantage of others. That's the problem. That's the challenge. We address that here in this conversation. If you're having thoughts along that line or comments or criticism of it, we want to hear your voice. You can join this conversation today. Send a note over to, put a comment in the comment section. We're watching that, and if we catch it, we'll send you a link and have you join the conversation. We would love that. So all week next week, starting on Monday, we're going to be streaming live from George Floyd Square. George Floyd Square, and the intent obviously is to bring together all of the political, the civic, the social, the neighborhood, the community, the grassroots, the activist communities, the environmentalist communities, the justice advocates, and have a variety of conversations every day next week, all centered around what happened on May 25th when George Floyd was murdered right here in Twin Cities, and actually before the eyes of the world, thanks to the teenager who had the courage to stand there and video, live stream the actual murder of a human being by an officer whose sworn mission was to protect and to serve. And who was he protecting? Who was he serving? That is the question. How do we make institutions that are intended to serve us do just that and not kill us? So anyway, join us, mark your calendar and be part of that program. If you've got a story from anywhere in the world, in fact, next week we're going to be talking to people hopefully in London and Germany, in West Africa, in the Caribbean, in South America, to get a sense of what the global impact of the George Floyd murder has been, and what it can mean for us if we are conscious and conscientious in seeking change within ourselves and within our community and within society, within how institutions function. So that's going to be an important set of conversations. We'll be documenting the conversations and producing digital documents, magazines, and post over the next several months that reflect and capture the various voices that come forward doing that. It's an exciting time. It's an exciting proposition. We want you to be part of it. And if you've got a voice, an essay, a poem, a song that you want to add to this conversation, we welcome that. Reach out to us at Cooper@insightnews.com, and or even in today's program in the chat, and tell people. Tell people. We want everybody involved in the conversation. Even if you totally disagree with our analysis and our position, we respect yours and we want your voice in as well. Well, let me go to today's program. I mentioned we're talking about farming and something that is old but new at the same time. My guests today are Catherine Fleming. She has worked for over 25 years in information technology with several Fortune 5 corporations. She's worked with nonprofits as well. And since 2011, she's worked with a program that's near and dear to me and everybody here in Minnesota called Project Sweetie Pie. Project Sweetie Pie is a 501c3 nonprofit based right here in North Minneapolis. She's also served as a representative of the MPOST, and she told me what it meant, and I forgot already, Minnesota Parks, and she'll give you the details about that, but she has served that at the state level, and she's now a member of the Minnesota Department of Agriculture's Emerging Farmers Workshop work group. She's also served on the Blue Line Coalition, and she's a former board member of MICA. She's a real estate developer, a commercial property owner, a lifelong community activist. And joining her is another new old friend. I'm meeting him today for the first time. I think you will as well, but you'll enjoy the conversation. Brother Parker Dome is here. Parker Dome Rechsteiner, correct me, Parker. Both of you, welcome to the conversation. I'm so glad to have you here and so glad for this conversation.
Oh, well, thank you, Al, for having us. Well, we are both excited. I know I'm excited to be a part of the conversation with Al McFarlane.
Well, I had your bio, but I didn't have Parker's. Parker, take a minute to introduce yourself and talk about what Big Green is and how we're having this conversation today for some important things that you all are doing. But I have you start that, Parker.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here today. You got the name right, Parker Dome Rechsteiner. I'm the Assistant Director of Events for Big Green. Big Green is a 501c3 as well. We're based in Denver, Colorado, but we do work nationally. And our goal, our mission is to get everyone in America growing food. So I'm sure we'll get into a few of the different ways that we're trying to accomplish that. But I'm just really happy to be here. Catherine is a good friend. We've worked together for several years now. Big Green and Project Sweetie Pie have a strong partnership that is developing in some pretty exciting ways. So looking forward to chatting about it.
Are you in Denver or you're in Minnesota?
I'm in Denver right now. I'll be in Minnesota tomorrow.
Okay.
I took a little break. I was on tour with the bus, which we'll get into. So I'm back home for a few days and then back on the road tomorrow.
Okay, we'll talk about that in a minute too, about what Big Green is. Catherine, our foundation here is Project Sweetie Pie. So let me have you talk about Project Sweetie Pie and sort of weave how you got to Project Sweetie Pie, given your career and background in technology in IT.
Well, it's somewhat of an interesting and weird story, but I came to Minnesota for a job assignment with the Ameriprise. So they were separating from American Express and they needed project managers. So I came here for that project. As I got to know some of the community members, I met a gentleman named Robert Cheney, and turned out he was Michael Cheney's brother. He introduced me to Michael, and the first thing out of Michael's mouth was, could you help us with Project Sweetie Pie in our organization, as we were doing some work with North High and working in other areas. So I was like, well, I don't know who this weird guy is, but I'll just agree to anything. So I said, sure. And then I left town for a year on another job assignment in Florida at FIU. So fast forward another year, I came back. I ran into him. I thought he'd forgotten about my commitment, but sadly he had not. So I committed to do a small amount of work for Project Sweetie Pie, and that's kind of how I kind of got roped into doing more activism. I grew up in New Jersey. I worked with Senator Frank Lautenberg and other politicians from an advocacy standpoint, but it's mostly part-time. So when I worked here with Ameriprise, and then I worked with Allianz. I also worked at Cargill. So those opportunities provided me with a little bit more free time as a consultant, and I was able to start working more diligently with Project Sweetie Pie, and it really fit in with the things that were important to me at that stage of my life. So,
what areas of IT did you specialize in or work in?
I'm a project manager. I started out as an analyst, business analyst, doing documentation, and moved into project management. Most senior role, I was a vice president at Koch Industries out in Wichita, Kansas. So I worked for the Koch brothers, and did a lot of work with them as well. So more project management. I mean, back in the day, I did RPG coding, AS400, things like that. But I moved away from more of the technical and moved into analysis, and then into management.
Your training was actually in the coding business in the early days of coding?
Yeah, that was the very early years. I won't go into not dropping key punch cards and things of that nature. I don't want to date myself too much, but I've been working in IT for quite some time in so many different areas. But,
this is an aside, but I'm interested in, I mean, it's like how many women, and Black women in particular, have done quite well in IT. And you don't hear it enough. I mean, because I think women have been pioneers. It's just like what did they call the computing sisters that did the space work?
Exactly. Right. I remember that with Taraji and others that in the movie, And you're absolutely right. When I started, there were no women, Black women in IT. I can talk about some of my challenges of walking to a room with all white men, and they think I'm the secretary and there to take notes.
Mm-hmm.
Come to find out, I'm their new manager. So that was interesting. I worked for different organizations on Wall Street, and there were some companies who said they didn't want to work with a woman. They didn't particularly name me as a Black woman, but fortunately, my company stood behind me and my skills spoke for themselves. And they were told, you either work with her or you won't have this project. So when I started out, you're right, there weren't any women and very few Black women. I didn't know any as far as peers and things of that nature. I was mentored by a Sicilian woman in New York. So I did not have that type of peer group to commiserate or to celebrate with.
So how has the world changed since you began and to where you are now? And where do you see yourself and women in the technology arena? What's the future?
We are everywhere. I still maintain friendships with other women over the years who have gotten into the IT arena, and it is booming. It's amazing, especially out of Atlanta. Some of my closest friends, they are in positions either as consultants where they're garnering $525 an hour for their services, or they're working for major corporations like Wells Fargo, some of the other companies outside in Atlanta. So I would say that the world is a wonderful oyster for Black women, especially in IT. And there are some Black men who have also joined the forces, so to speak. But I think Black women were in the forefront of IT, and they have really shown themselves to be forces in that arena in so many different levels, starting out from programming, network, all the way up through management. So I am excited and proud of the new wave of Black women who are in the IT world.
My friend Mike V says he also used to work for Ameriprise and worked in IT as well. So he said, hello to you, Sister Fleming. And he says he now works in cybersecurity.
I hope that he will tell you that when I worked there, I think it was 2017, some time ago, I was the only permanent Black woman employee in their whole IT department across the world. So there was one Black woman who was a consultant, but that just lets you know that was 2017 and I was the only one.
Well, here's a great question from Mike B. He says, Baba Al, please ask Sister Fleming about her thoughts on the anti-DEI legislation coming down the pipe and the impact on Black people in IT and the academy. What do you think?
I'm thinking that although folks might think that it's going to have a adverse impact, I think because of the skills you have in IT, there's almost like they have no choice but to utilize your skills. So I think skills in this arena might supersede any elimination of the affirmative action or what the DEI is right now. I think IT offers an opportunity for folks who don't have a college education. If you have the appropriate skills, I think it's a doorway to higher earnings, even if you decide not to go to college or don't complete college. I think it's a great opportunity there. And I stand by my opinion that your skills within IT will probably supersede any attempts to water down or eliminate affirmative action, etc. I think the corporate need and the bottom line will be the consummate drivers of who is hired and who is maintained. So I really don't fear it for IT. I do see that there's some challenges in other areas of the economy, but for IT, I think there's a stronger foothold than there might be in other industries.
Talk about Sweetie Pie. Let's pivot. We have a sense of the breadth and depth of your approach to the world and to professionalism and to technology and science. So how do you bring all that into Project Sweetie Pie beyond the happenstance of meeting?
Right. I was going to say that happenstance, right? If there's such a thing, I think everything has a purpose and a reason, although we may not know what it is. But you're absolutely right. Project Sweetie Pie, we started out with just a little gardening organization trying to do the best we could to provide food for neighborhood residents. And that's our foothold. That's where we stand. That's our foundation. However, over the years, Project Sweetie Pie has grown and morphed into so many other things that hopefully will have positive impact on the community. You talked about two important areas there, Mr. McFarlane, and that was the George Floyd murder.
Al,
okay. You talked about two important areas that had an impact on a profound impact on not only our community, but the world. And that was George Floyd, but also COVID-19. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to go into the George Floyd. I know you're going to do it justice next week. So let's talk about COVID-19 and the impact that it had on the world and our food system. I think we've been noted, we in North Minneapolis has been noted as a food desert, food swamp, whatever phrase you want to use, for many years. However, COVID-19 pointed out that our entire food system is in trouble. It's a problem. It's an issue, and it needs to be addressed not only locally, but globally from a world perspective. I know the UN has their thing that they're doing with the sustainable goals and things like that. We'll let them do their work. But from our perspective of what we're doing here in North Minneapolis and beyond is in response and acceleration based on COVID-19 and its impact on our community. When we talk to youth who come to work at Project Sweetie Pie, one of the questions we ask them is, well, where do you think your food comes from? And the majority of them say Cub Foods. They have no concept of growing food or where it comes from or how food gets to their table. And that's one of our challenges. Another one of our challenges.
Let me interject to support your observation. Yeah, I remember back writing stories several years ago where people would talk about no food and not being able to get food. And the story really revolved around having cash to buy something at a corner store, at a grocery store. And that amid the state's declaration that we are a state of 10,000 lakes, right? And 10,000 lakes automatically translates into thousands and thousands and thousands of fish, right? And so the question is, how can people sit in a community feeling incapable of feeding themselves when there is not the training or the expectation or the idea, the thought that one of the solutions might be, just taking a bamboo pole and a line and a worm, to a lake or the river and catching food every day because the food is abundant in that way, particularly in the summer, but it's also available year round. Point I'm making is that we are indoctrinated in our community to not see the resources that aren't readily apparent in our 4-block area. We are limited, and the culture and the society does that to us, I think. So that's my aside. Go ahead.
No, I totally agree with you. I mean, no argument for me on that front. I mean, that's one of the larger challenges that we had at Project Sweetie Pie, but we were able to overcome those challenges with training and education of our youth and moving our community forward with looking at some of the things that we could grow and they have access to. So that part is exciting. Another challenge that we faced was our youth who said, listen, we're not slaves anymore. We don't want to be fooling around in the dirt and the soil. What are you talking about, Catherine? What are you talking about, Project Sweetie Pie? Once they saw the power and the benefits of growing, we couldn't keep them away. I mean, we had step up kids who were paid to work in our gardens, but we have what we call walk ups, kids who may not know how to fill out the paperwork, may not qualify for a step up program, but who want to be involved. And
Step Up
those were
is
the
the city's
kids.
funded jobs for kids for the summer.
Exactly. So, right, we sadly for many years we couldn't pay them, but they had such an interest in growing food and being a participant in our program that it's very, very exciting, and also brought to mind to us, Project Sweetie Pie, that the next generation of farmers is coming from urban areas. The interest of our youth in environment, in climate change, and things of that sort cannot be understated. And that is something that we're building up upon. If you couple that with discussions about reparations, reclaiming the land, all of those still lead back to to farming, to agriculture. I know we like to talk about agriculture as just farming and just quote unquote playing or growing in the soil. But as we talk about with Project Sweetie Pie, there's so many tentacles to agriculture. I mean, we talk about the health and mental aspects. We talk about engineering. We talk about IT. We talk about all of the aspects that intersect with agriculture. Michael likes to talk about once you start growing, you realize, I need a rake. I might need a hoe. I might need some tools. What am I going to do? I need a hose. I need all of these things. I need a plan. So the intersection with agriculture and the way of life and the things that we do and how we intersect with all those different things is an important element that we point out to the youth that we work with, and the fact that they bring that information back to their parents and to their community. So we're really proud. A lot of our youth have gone on to other jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Demetria Fullers is the chef at Pillsbury United. She worked with us since she was 14 years old. Divine Izzy, she went to college and now she works for the city of Minneapolis. I mean, I could go on with a list of folks, of kids who work with us and have grown over the years. So we started out, Project Sweetie Pie started out small, but we were the first ones to pen legislation that had the words urban agriculture. First time in the nation that we saw that. Now everybody's on the urban agriculture bandwagon. There's an FSA office for urban agriculture. I mean, everybody now, there's money flooding in all over the place. We've been here all along. I want to give Parker a chance to chime in here, but
before he does, I want to say kudos to my friend Michael Chaney. I love Michael Chaney. I love his voice, his vision, his ideas. Every time I talk to Michael, he drops pearls on me. And one that I've never forgotten, we were sitting talking, and he said, I see Plymouth Avenue, and I live on one end of Plymouth Avenue. I live at Plymouth and Thomas in North Minneapolis. And for those who are in other cities around the country or other parts of town, Plymouth Avenue was the site of the so-called riots or rebellion in the 1960s, where there was a commercial district that was gutted, burned, when young people decided they had enough of being brutalized by the police and also being treated rudely and disrespected by even merchants in the community, but also merchants downtown. And so for a long time, all the buildings that got gutted out and burned out just stayed there, probably as punishment to our community, to tell us that a rebellion and resistance was futile. But Michael is one of the voices that came and said, you know what? I see Plymouth Avenue like the Nile Valley of Minneapolis. This is a place that can grow and sustain life by growing food. That's a powerful vision. And he applies that ability to see solutions in and around all of the crises when most of us are stuck in understanding and feeling the oppression created by the crisis and buying into the inevitability of our failure, of our inability. I say this about that too often. We get the problem, they get the money, we get the misery, but other people make money on our misery, and their incentive is to keep us in a position of misery because we're like a cow that you tap the vein of the cow, drink the blood, but don't kill the cow.
Right.
The cow's going to give you life forever. We end up being that source of sustenance, but we suffer for it. Let me go to Parker. And Parker, again, thank you. I want you to talk about what you're doing. So Parker is an accomplished professional, serving, as he said, as the assistant director of events at Big Green, and he's got a talent for transforming ideas into memorable experiences. He plays a pivotal role in amplifying Big Green's positive influence within local communities. And with about 6 years of experience in the events industry, he's got a wealth of expertise and creativity. He's fostered meaningful connections and impactful outcomes. He's kind of built a reputation as a driving force behind his organization's success. And his commitment is to mastery of event management. And so Big Green is a project that he's part of taking it to new levels. Parker, let me start by asking you to lay out what is Big Green, what the mission, what the vision is, where it exists, and how you connect with Project Sweetie Pie.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, Big Green's a nonprofit. We're based in Denver, and the goal is to get everyone in America growing food. So if you go to our website or you look at any of our materials, we say over and over again to the point where people cheer it, that growing food changes lives. And we really believe that. And the reason we say that is because we recognize when people take a step towards growing their own food, it has wide-reaching impacts. It gets them, outside into nature, gets them closer to the effects of climate change, improves your mental health. It gives you control over your food supply. It increases economic mobility. And we see communities that grow together in the garden become stronger for it. So at the school, home, and community level, we do whatever we can to help people take that first step towards taking control over their food supply. Sometimes that might resemble a garden kit going to your house. Sometimes it might resemble identifying an organization like Project Sweetie Pie and forming a partnership to amplify the work being done in a specific community. But the three kind of strategies we use are gardens, grants, and gatherings. And so the grants component is funding matters, channeling funding into the appropriate lanes matters, and communities know what those communities need. So making sure that that money goes to organizations that know what they need and that they have the freedom to do what they need to do with it to improve the circumstances in their locale. Gardens, having a physical place to join together and grow. When people see other people growing, they say that looks fun and they get involved if they wouldn't otherwise. And it creates a real meeting space. And then gatherings, which is my big thing. People need to come together. Communities are more robust when they celebrate together, when they work together, when they share time together. And, in the different ways that Big Green does our work, gatherings and bringing folks together is a huge component of that, whether that's to actually teach folks how to install irrigation hoses, right? Like whether it could be a training for that, it could be a celebration at the conclusion of good work done together, or it could be like what we've been doing this spring, which is a bus tour. We've been traveling to visit some of our local partners and having big community events in support of that. So that's my main role when people come together, making sure that they have a wonderful place to feel comfortable, feel connected, and work together to continue advancing the mission.
So give me Big Green 101. Why the name? Who started it? When? How's it funded? And you set the vision is that everybody should grow food. That's a grand vision. And so what are the steps? You've sort of said that, but you probably have a list that you have as a playbook that you try to go through ABC, check, 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 check. So take me down that path.
Yeah, so we started as an organization in 2011. We were initially called the Kitchen Community. I'm not sure where the name Big Green comes from. That's a great question. And now I'm realizing I should probably ask. It's a great name. I
would guess that it comes from Big Green Planet, but I don't know, but maybe not.
Yeah, I don't know. I always like to think of it as like we're a movement, right? That it's, that it's the gardening needs a lobby, right? Like that's how I always think about it, but I don't know what the real answer is. So I'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
But yeah, founded in 2011 with the goal of connecting people to their food supply. For many years, we focused exclusively on school gardens. So we would install, operate school gardens all over the country. Those gardens still exist in a lot of places, but we talked about COVID-19 a little bit. After in a post-COVID world, it's harder to do work consistently in schools. So we've moved to a more broad model with the gardens grants and gatherings that I mentioned earlier. The steps, yeah. So the goal right now, the mission is to get everyone in America growing food. And you're right, that's pretty ambitious. And there's quite a few different ways to approach that. But I think the biggest thing is getting folks in the garden early, giving them the resources to have a good experience, continued work, making sure that space exists for people to participate in. And, for some folks, it's as easy as, hey, you could start a garden, and that's all they need is like the knowledge that it's available. For some folks, it's resources. For some folks, it's education. For some folks, it's having a place, right? Like I live in an apartment. Having a garden isn't the easiest thing in the world for me. And there are many people in that same situation. So I think we try to meet people where we're at, and we try to listen to our partners and figure out what any specific community needs. And we listen and then we work. So we try to tailor solutions to specific places that we're doing work in.
So how is the project funded? How do you guys keep your doors open? And what do you do in terms of creating funds to support local and other national initiatives?
Yeah, so like most nonprofits, we're always fundraising. If anyone's listening and wants to go to biggreen.org, there's a donate button on there, but we are primarily supported by private donors. And the second part of the question, supporting other initiatives, I think we really make sure that we're directing funds to places where they're going to do the most good. So we try to find strong local partners, grassroots organizations that are doing good work already. And I like to say that we are an amplifier. So we're not going into a place and saying, this is what this community needs. We're going into a community and asking, what do you need? And how can we accelerate that?
What's your relationship with Kimball Musk? And who is Kimball Musk to the organization?
Yeah, Kimball Musk is our founder. He was a co-founder of Big Green, and he's our CEO.
Okay, and he's relative to the famous Musk, right?
Yeah, they're brothers.
Okay, all right. So does that influence what you do? Does he provide money to what you're doing, or seed money, or does the name attract money? I mean, how does it work?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is having a CEO and a founder who really cares about the mission. Like everyone at the company, I'm not going to speak for Kimball, but I think he would be comfortable with me saying that he really cares about food and cares about people having access to it. Mm-hmm. And I think, like any organization, having someone in a leadership position who is very mission oriented and very focused on achieving the mission makes things a lot easier for us.
Mike V is asking you, Parker, do you know if Big Green will touch on the cannabis literacy or hemp for that matter? Is that something that is included in the idea of urban farming?
For us, we're very focused on food. So for us, that we're very targeted towards organizations that grow food, help people grow food, very much on the nutrition, food access, and food justice sides of things. So that is not in scope with what we do right now.
Mm-hmm. Catherine, I'm feeling that this discussion about food is revolutionary. What do you mean, Al McFarlane? If everybody is able to grow food in their yard, in their apartment. They'll be able to produce and eat what they have produced. Uh, it, Farm to table might mean porch to table. If the
Mm-hmm.
porch is where you planted some greens or tomatoes in that season, if you're an apartment dweller, it could be backyard to table. I'm a gardener,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't do it last year, but over the past several years, I kept expanding and expanding to where I got to where half of my backyard was like a farm. And it was obviously therapeutic. I loved it. I loved being in the dirt. I loved being with my grandson. I got videos of me and when he was like 3 years old, walking around with stems of kale and eating kale raw out of the garden, but feeling, the beauty of knowing that if I want a salad today, I go up my back porch, I pick the number of leaves I intend to eat and bring them in and add to them tomatoes and other things that have come out of my garden that I grew. So it's organic, it's clean, and most of all, it's me being involved in that process in a way that I couldn't be if I depended and thought that the only way I could eat would be if I bought it at a store. Revolutionary then, what happens when everybody, Parker, grows her own food? What happens when everybody is able to grow his own food and then exchange food with neighbors? If one specializes in plant A and the other in plant B, and we develop systems for cooperation, what happens to the huge agribusiness? Is it a threat at all? Or maybe it's not. Maybe people will say universal, the universal idea you've shared about everybody growing food is simply a dream that will never happen. But I wonder, it could happen. And if it does happen, how does that change the economy of the world? Catherine and then Parker.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because that's a key area for Michael Chaney, and that is a co-op model. I mean, people don't realize just how much food you can grow in a small amount of space. So at some point, you might have more tomatoes than you need.
And I do,
Al.
always, yeah.
So I've got broccoli over here. So you give me 2 of your tomatoes and I'll give you a couple of heads of broccoli. So that concept, what you're talking about, that cooperative approach is a business model. One of the things that Michael talks about is that growth, is that connectivity, is that urban, suburban, rural connection that we intend to build with this Foster Green project. So not only is it the opportunity for economic advancement, but it's also an opportunity for community connectivity that may not have existed or has become fallow over the years or disconnected, which we intend to rebuild. So part of this Foster Green project that we're working on with Kimball Musk, Big Green, and Parker is our key representative here today, is to foster, ergo the name, the greening of our community, enhancing our community, but not leaving out the economic development portion of it. We want to make sure that we're putting a foundation in place to build generational wealth. I mean, not just what's happening today, but making sure that our community is not only sustainable from a food focus, but also from an economic perspective as well. So those are key elements for us. I'll give Parker an opportunity to chime in, but we can go down that road a little bit further. But make no mistake, it's not just a matter of growing food, although that is a key component and foundation. We're looking to provide an economic platform for people in addition to being able to grow their food.
And that's why I call it revolutionary. This is a subversive almost, and I love it. Parker, go ahead.
Not much to add other than if there were a grocery store on every corner that sold cheap, healthy food, we would probably pack it up and go home. But the reality is that's not the case. So, certainly, if everyone grew their own food, there wouldn't be a need for that. or there would be less of a need for that. But the reality as it is right now is not that, folks are unwilling. It's that in many cases they're unable, whether for economic factors or geographic factors or some combination of both, or, political history that dissuades a grocery store from opening up in a walkable neighborhood. There's a lot of reasons why people don't have access to fresh, healthy produce. And one of the key reasons we're doing what we're doing is to try to address that, inefficiency rather than, correct an existing efficient market.
You both talked about global implications. State those, if you would, Parker. What is the global implication? When I sense a disruption or a strategy to disrupt systems that have segregated things that ought to be integrated, and not for a good reason. What do you think?
Yeah, I think for us,
the good reason is somebody's profit, but it's profit at the expense of the consumer and of humanity.
Exactly. I was going to say there's a good reason for somebody, not necessarily us.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to interrupt Parker, but because I'm a woman of color, I think I can address that as well. So I'll give Parker a minute.
Parker,
I
come back.
Yes. Yes.
No, I see the floor. Catherine, take it away.
So the global implications, if you go back to the Victory Garden that was during the war, where the president asked people to grow their own food because we were feeding the world. We were feeding the world for war. We have a war right here. The war is against us in some instances, and there are many battlefields. Food can be a weapon. I'd say food has been weaponized in war and many other scenarios that may not be as flagrant as you see in war. So when you talked about not having access, food desert, things like that, all of those things were intentional, Al, as you pointed out. So food has been weaponized in so many instances, and our fight is to take away that weapon, is to minimize it, is to make sure that it doesn't have the profound impact that it had in the past. You talked about George Floyd, and I won't expand upon it too much, but that put Minneapolis on the map from the world's perspective. Everybody's looking at us.
Yes.
So you might not realize it, but the world is looking to see what we're doing. How are we handling the George Floyd scenario? How are we handling the information about we're last when it comes to equity below Mississippi? The world is watching. So we should be on the forefront of solutions. We should be on the forefront, not just because we came up with the first legislation that had the words urban agriculture. That's great that we did that, but then we can't stop there. We need to show the world that we are addressing equity, that we are just addressing inclusion, that we're addressing what COVID did to our food system. We should be in a leadership position from a grassroots perspective to make sure that the world knows that we are addressing those concerns that were so highlighted by the George Floyd murder and by COVID-19. So the world is watching. We're taking action. We have many community partners, collaborators, and others who are assisting us. Big Green is one of those. They're providing materials. They're providing support. They're providing training. We'll go into on the Foster Green Project in depth in a moment, but I want to give Parker a chance to respond to your question. It just seems it's more political, Al, and I am that person.
Yeah, I have nothing to add, Catherine. You just
So Al, I mean, I respect the time and I love that we're here in the conversation, but I would love to give the audience some more details about this Foster Green and our launch of our
we have time. Take your time and lay it out.
Big Green on May 18th. We want everybody to come out to Oak Park 1701 Oak Park Avenue, the Pillsbury United Community Building. Come on out for food, fun, entertainment, and to meet Big Green. Why do you want to meet Big Green? Big Green is Project Sweetie Pie's consummate partner in this Foster Green project. So what's Foster Green, you might ask? Where'd that come from? Well, Foster Green is a collaboration between Project Sweetie Pie and Big Green. Big Green, I guess, manufactures garden planters, and they are iconic. They are beautiful, and they are what we view as connectors, community connectors, from the standpoint of the Twin Cities all the way out to suburban and urban areas. It's a visible representation of who we are, who we represent, and our partnership across the Twin Cities and beyond. These garden planters, iconic as they are, will be modified by Project Sweetie Pie to contain QR codes. They will be culturally specific to the neighborhoods in which they are placed. They will have artist renditions and show the neighborhood and all of the glory that they want to represent from our artistic perspective. So this visual representation, this visible connector, this visible community landmark is something that we're proud of, and what we want to proliferate all through the Twin Cities. So we're excited about this relationship, this partnership with Big Green, that they're providing these garden planters. You'll get an opportunity to see these planters, see how they are connected, how you can use them to grow food. All of that is going to be demonstrated on May 18th, Saturday, at the Oak Park Community Center, 1701 Oak Park Avenue in Minneapolis. The Big Green bus will be there. It's beautiful. It's amazing. Parker has a seed library in there. He's got a place to do interviews and things of that nature, and provide information about Big Green and learn more about it. We're going to give away grow bags and things of that sort. So Foster Green, Michael and I have talked to many organizations about spreading these garden planters. We're working closely. Mark Ritchie is a part of our team, our former Secretary of State. He's instrumental in moving this initiative forward. Eric Putnam, our senator, has shown a great respect and a concurrence of moving these garden planters out into the community. So we've got that support. We've talked to Keith Baker with Reconnect Rondo, and having these planters as a visible representation of where the community is. What are our borders? Where do we live? So this is a way for the community to connect with each other, to be able to grow food, to be able to grow plants, to be able to identify a particular area in the neighborhood. So one of our challenges was, well, who's going to maintain these garden planters? They're beautiful and all of that, but what's going to happen? Well, part of what Project Sweetie Pie does is develop a youth workforce that's going to be trained. We're going to be working with the downtown ambassadors and supplementing what they do to make sure we're having those planters downtown. In suburban areas, we're going to have a trained youth force to make sure that we maintain these planters, because nobody wants to see a fallow looking garden planter, especially how beautiful these planters are.
Sure.
So in order to make sure that they're maintained, that they get the care and love that we definitely think they deserve, we are training a youth workforce to maintain them. And we're hoping that's going to grow. We're looking for more youth. We're looking for funds to pay the youth. Of course, we're going to pay them. That's absolutely necessary. Right. We're looking at a minimum of $20 an hour for their help. We're partnering with landscape organizations and companies if they want to move into something more permanent from a job perspective. So it's not just a matter of the planters, which are the baseline, which is what we want to definitely promote. But we're also looking at the tentacles of a youth workforce, the training of that workforce, the education of the community, and a visible representation of our communities and how we're all connected. Brooklyn Park is the same as North Minneapolis.
Yep.
We are all one community, and we need to operate that way. We need to support each other. And sometimes you just need something you can point to say, yeah, we're part of that group, we're part of that organization, and we're proud of it. This is how we represent what we do, how we represent our community, how we represent our culture. So that's the significance of Foster Green. That's the importance of our relationship with Big Green. And this event on Saturday is the kickoff of that relationship, that expansion of our relationship. We've had a relationship for years, but this is the specific toward Foster Green and what's happening at that event and what's happening with Big Green. So
let me give you three observations here, three things that I took notes on while you were speaking. I'm so inspired and so thankful to you, Catherine, and to you, Parker, for what you're doing and what you're presenting. And I'm feeling that the people that are watching and that will watch this program will feel the same way. I'm asking those who are watching on any of the platforms, make sure you share this, take it to the places that you network, and let people get a piece of this conversation and comment on it and share their personal experience. Like Michelle, she says, my son and his family have a garden in their backyard. My 3- and 5-year-old grandsons help maintain it. They love seeing the fruits of their labor. There's nothing better than that, to figure out a way for grandparents, grandpa, grandma, mom and dad to be in the garden, in the dirt with their 3-year-old, 4-year-old, and loving, creating and reflecting our ability to nourish each other in a way that's healthy to the body, healthy to the mind and spirit as well. And Mike V mentions that you all should consider a solidarity summit in Minneapolis to lead the way on all forms of social justice around the food initiative. So that's an idea.
Oh, that's
Mike
a great
V
idea.
and I are also connected through a project called Narrative in Nubia. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but I'm going to give a plug to them because I am an advocate of the principles. Nubia, those who are listening, the word narrative in Nubia, narrative is spelled with a K, just like knowledge. Knowledge, K-N-O-W. Well, the word narrative with the K in front of it. And within the narrative strategy, Nubia, which is these are both online and connected communities where people are committed to what we are calling Africana ways of knowing. And the principle is to look beyond the systems of segregative thinking and look to and discover integrative, holistic patterns of being where knowledge is valued and where the commitment is to test everything, to document everything, and to go house by house, city by city, country by country, sharing knowledge and improving knowledge as a way of living and as a way of doing business. And that is the system out of which ancient Kemet arose. Ancient Kemet, from our point of view, being the source of humanity and therefore the source of what we're calling today an Africana way of knowing. Well, we post these interviews on the Narrative homepage. So within a couple of hours, this conversation will be shared. And Mike D is one of the people that's a regular, I think, in Nubia. We call ourselves Nubians. And it's just a wonderful community. It's people who have a spirit, a like mind, and a vision. So as you were talking earlier, this is some of the language we learn and hear and discuss in Narrative in Nubia. The revolutionary nature of this conversation is that you are proposing a system, a process that creates a jailbreak. We're jailbreaking the structural and planned, it's like planned obsolescence. Apply that to our humanity, and we have been contained in a system that will not allow us to flourish and become our full and best selves. And that as we think and talk and do things like addressing nutrition and accessibility and cooperation and collaboration, that is, Parker, a disruption that can be massive and global. When we free ourselves from the limitations of the propaganda that instructs us to be powerless, we begin to discover the power we have, and that power is reflected in our ability to do things human beings can do. That includes growing food, right? And sharing food and sharing ways to be with each other that is different from what the social structure provides for us. Well, the last note I have is that, whenever I talk to Michael, I get a headache, and it's a good headache because he's always loading me up with ideas. So I'm sure he's listening. He's probably laughing, and he should be. But I enjoy talking to Michael, just like I enjoy this conversation. And one thing between Catherine, you and Parker and Michael, we should do is create a column in Insight News on Foster Green, right?
Right.
On the movement. And that can integrate. So I'm throwing it out. You guys think about it. What can we do to create an ongoing column, information, instruction? We use the principle of the 3 I's. We say our mission is to inform, to instruct, and to inspire. The 3 I's, right? So what can we do to give people critical information, critical analysis, right? And to give people instruction? Come to Oak Park on Saturday, the 18th.
Yes.
And be a part of Foster Green Day at Oak Park. And then inspiration, keep sharing the story, because the narrative, shifting the narrative, telling the story is the way people can envision and see themselves as the solution and not as the problem. We have been confined or ascribed to the problem side of the equation. And that's a question of trickery, because we are the solution.
Of course,
the problem won't be solved until we see ourselves that way and we act in our own agency as problem solvers. Go ahead, Catherine.
No, I was going to say that can take so many forms. I mean, I know we're out of time, but I mean, I could talk about what we've been requesting in the Farm Bill, and that is access to the U.S. database, where they've listed all of the plants grown in Africa that we don't have access to here in the United States. That's one of the requests that we're making of the Farm Bill. Right now, only a certain group of researchers have access to that. And that's probably because this country is based on corn, soybean, and others, where there are African fruits and vegetables grown that have higher nutritional values and that our bodies are more accustomed to. So the cultural specificity of certain vegetables is important to our livelihood of our generation, of our kids, something that our body's craving and has missed for generations. So, I mean, we could talk about that. There are other areas of agriculture that we need to inform our community about as well, and raise the awareness, raise the consciousness of what's going on, so that they'll be better able to make educated decisions about their life, what they're eating, what they're consuming, and what their kids consume. We work with daycare centers where we've had kids get excited about a worm that they found in the soil. We've gotten kids who are in grade school who are so excited about the first tomato that they grow. The interest, the enthusiasm is there. We need to tap into it. We can't ignore it. We should not let it slip through our fingers. Our kids are poised and ready to move forward as environmentalists, as climate changers, as being able to address some of the issues that are going to be problematic for their generation after we're long gone. So I'll end it on that note, but
let me throw one more thing out. I don't know. I'm associated with Greater Twin Cities United Way. And one of the projects the United Way has done in the past year is try to support food shelves with culturally specific foods. And it recognizes that different cultures have different pathways or approaches to assembling nutrition. There's cultural value and familiarity. So I don't know if Sweetie Pie is connected with that project, but I want you to connect, if you're not, with the people that Greater Twin Cities United Way, because that could be one of the ways that produce grown at the urban farms, that neighborhood
Mhm.
farms can also be supplied to people who need food through food shelves in our community here. Let's stop it there. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you very much, Al. It's always a pleasure. Thank you, Parker.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was lovely.
Parker, thank you too. And I'm going to count on both of you to follow up on the idea of the column. Okay. Already. Oh, Catherine, last question. Where are you from? Where's
Yes.
your home? Catherine, where are you from? Or did she sign up?
Yes,
Are you
sir.
still there? Yeah, where are you from? Where's your home?
I'm from Augusta, Georgia, Green James Brown territory, but I grew up in New Jersey.
In New Jersey. My family on my mother's side is from Mississippi, and I tell you, you remind me
Yes.
a lot of my cousins. They look like you part of my family, so we probably connected somewhere on the trail.
I am. If we go back far enough, Al, we're kissing cousins. That's all.
There we go. Alriady. Thank you so much. We'll
Take
see you
care.
guys later.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye bye.